conversation with the Sprig team, and right now we're talking with the Sprig team about, well, we talked about their journey, where they've gotten to, how they're able to get a distribution deal with Anheuser-Busch on some of the other products that they have. Now we're going to talk about the future of like CBD and where they see this industry going, and what excites them, because they're crushing it. I mean, they are. They said on record they have sold over 10,000 plus cans every month, and I'm sure that number is grossly underestimated. They're probably doing way more. It's just fine. I don't need to know their financials, but they are doing really well. They have great line of products, and we're just gonna have a continue this talk. So I'm curious. When someone says, like you said, Bush said, "Hey, what is CBD?" and this and that about CBD. What's your take on that whole world or the word CBD?
Sure. What I tell these folks is that this it's a compound that's in the cannabis plant.
Okay.
For one thing, it's sort of the sister or the cousin to THC. THC being the most popular of the they're called cannabinoids that are in the plant. CBD is rising in popularity, probably the second most popular one. And, what it is that it's a non-psychoactive, so a non-intoxicating compound that still has a lot of the sort of medicinal and therapeutic benefits of cannabis. So what that means in plain English is that this is something that people can take and, to help with pain or to help with anxiety or sleep, but they're not going to get high from it.
Okay.
So that's the short story.
I think that's a win-win for some people who don't want to get high. I'm not saying getting high or not getting high is good or bad. I'm just saying for some people who don't want to get high specifically, but they want those benefits of the plant, you're saying that CBD provides that, correct?
Correct, yeah.
And is this like medically tested? Does it have to go through any process, like a CBD plan or any of those regulations with, like, because you said medical benefits or health benefits, any of those regulations you have to deal with?
Absolutely, and it's a evolving situation even as we speak. I mean, there's been a lot of change this week. Hemp was recently federally legalized in December of last year, so it was removed from the Controlled Substances Act. So I'm not going to go to jail for selling.
Which
CBD.
is going to help a lot of farmers.
It helps a lot of farmers,
right?
And it helps people who really want access to these products and use them for these therapeutic benefits. What hasn't happened and what needs to happen on the regulatory front is that the FDA needs to understand CBD better and approve it as a food ingredient, which it hasn't done. Now they have done something with CBD on the pharmaceutical side. There's a drug that is active in the market that has CBD as an ingredient, which is great progress. But now they also need to look at it, and what they are looking at is how it can be used in other applications and making sure that there's a regulatory pathway for doing that.
Okay.
So that creates confusion because you have some folks saying it's legal, and then you have other folks, say, well, the FDA says it's not an approved food ingredient, and that's kind of one of the things that we, battle with on a day-to-day basis, but it's improving very quickly.
What are some other regulations? And I know we talked about this offline about, some of the hurdles you'd have to deal with from a legal perspective. What are some past regulations that now have been cleared for you, but because clearly they must have been hard for you, but now that they're clear, it's made your business better in a way?
Sure. On a federal level, really that farm bill in December of 2018 was extremely helpful to us.
So give me a simple example how that farm bill made your business better. Like, give me a customer example. Or
it gave a comfort level to distributors and to retailers to start stocking the product and selling the product. So we're in a few grocery chains now in the United States. They wouldn't have taken it before then because it was much more illegal.
Do you know the name of this act by chance? I'm just curious.
The Farm Bill of 2018, which was like an omnibus spending bill for the nation's agriculture. So all the farm subsidies, really the whole program for our country's agriculture is budgeted in 5-year chunks.
Yep.
And so that's tucked into this version of it, or this rev of it, was this hemp legalization language.
Okay.
Yeah, which was interestingly driven by Mitch McConnell, in Kentucky.
Yeah, I read that.
A relatively conservative guy.
Yeah.
And but he was behind this because hemp was a cash crop in Kentucky back in the day, and they are trying to make it a cash crop again because there's such demand for it.
So it comes down to economics, you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
So one thing that fascinates me is back in the day when like Colorado was one of those first states that had some form of selling, you know, marijuana in stores and things of that sort, and the tax revenues that came from that were so huge. And I think with California now having it, I think the same thing will happen. Do you think one more question on this law, how do you think this new law will help the whole CBD industry as a whole outside of Sprig? Like, what other products you think in your eyes do you think will do well in the next few years?
I think there's such a wide array of applications for CBD. Obviously, any food product you can think of, people are already putting CBD in, and that'll spread. I mean, we've seen CBD pizzerias.
Really?
Which we were like, why is that a thing? But it is.
That's funny.
But beyond food and beverage, you know, use in textiles, use in clothing. You know, like BMW already uses quite a bit of hemp in the fiber, their dash fibers, and that's, you know, foreign sourced hemp that now can be sourced domestically
locally,
for the BMWs that are produced in the United States.
Wow.
So there's a huge economic aspect to hemp specifically.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And how's that relation to you, hemp and CBD? Or I know CBD comes from hemp, but like, is there any direct hemp products that you make, or is it just the CBD infused?
We just use what we do is we buy a CBD isolate from a processor, and that processor, they're based in North Carolina.
Cool.
They buy the hemp from a hemp farm or several hemp farms, and then they take it, they extract the CBD out of the plant, and then we buy that as our raw material.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about where you guys are now, like the where you guys are doing. I mean, like you said, you're crushing it now. You're doing, you know, you're out there everywhere. I mean, I was able to find your product very easily. We talked about it offline, which kudos to you guys on your distribution. I'm just curious, like, you know, how is the media perceiving your brand? Because one thing, when you go to your Instagram, which is how I first reached out to you, you have a lot of great press. I mean, really good publications from Forbes, Bustle, all these great names. What are they seeing in your company? Like, anything surprise you? Because you know how media is. Like, they see the world from hey, we're covering, we read trends, we study all these industries. You know, we all live in our world sometimes, our little caves or little factories or little offices, and you know, we're so in what we're doing. It's interesting to see what others think. Any perspective you got from them?
Yeah, I mean, do you have anything? Do you want to touch on that, Lisa?
Sure. So I think kind of what Michael spoke on earlier, that we have a very friendly and approachable brand. It's not that, like I mentioned, legacy stoner. It's more of a mainstream, you know, friendly can. And I think that combined with cannabis is a new concept for a lot of people. And so the media is excited by this. And it also has the buzziness or the coolness of these better for you beverages that are coming out that are incredibly popular right now. You know, your sparkling waters, your kombuchas, those types of things.
Yes, kombucha, yeah.
So CBD is establishing itself as its own category, and I think the media is curious about it, and as are consumers.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. By the way, I'm curious, how did you guys come up with the name Sprig?
So Sprig is a sort of a nod to the ingredient without being an overt reference to cannabis. It's, you know, we think of it like a sprig of rosemary or a sprig of thyme, but in this case, obviously, a sprig of cannabis.
Okay.
When we first started, so in 2014, 2015, when we were developing the product, a lot of the other products in the market they had cannabis puns, and they drove us crazy. Everything was like canna puffs or something, or what was Keef Cola. Yeah, sorry, Keef Cola guys. But there were just these, we thought, sort of obnoxious names. So this was a little more, vanilla sounding. I guess is where we went with it.
Okay. You know, one thing I mentioned earlier in my conversation before the show, before I interviewed you too, is that entrepreneurs see things in a different way sometimes. Like, you know, they see the world, you know, 3, 5, 10 years down the line. And right now people might laugh at you and be like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Like a great example is Netflix. When Netflix first started, everyone was like, hey, who's going to do online DVD rentals, or who's going to do online streaming? Like Blockbuster laughed, and now they're gone. Tower Records laughed at the Apple Music, or at the time iTunes, and look where they are. You know, what is this world that you see that you haven't accomplished yet as a company? I'm curious. Like, this is your visionary talk mode, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, I mean the headline on the THC side is that this is the first new liquid intoxicant since the end of prohibition of alcohol. I mean, it's a massive shift. You know, it's a product that does have a kind of a recreational fun side to it, but that does not harm your body. It doesn't, you know, take its toll on your liver. You know, you're not going to go and get in a bar fight after drinking some Sprig. It's a huge change, and that's why you have these major liquor companies looking so closely at it. So I think that's the easiest way to explain it. I mean, that is going to be a huge category, and it already is growing quickly. That's why you have Anheuser-Busch and Molson Coors, Constellation Brands, the biggest liquor companies in the world, all actively investing in the cannabis space already, because they see where this is going.
Speaking of finances, whatever you're allowed to share, like, how did you scale the company? I mean, did you raise money? Did you self-sustain? Did you sell your Forerunner? Whatever. Like, what did you? I love that story. I could just see you like driving this Forerunner with like, I don't know, like Guns N' Roses music, and all these guys are like, what who's this guy? What?
Anyways. That's exactly what it was. There was a lot of Guns N' Roses.
Nice.
We did raise money.
Okay.
We raised a lot from friends and family.
Nice.
You know, kind of a typical story.
So what was your pitch then? I'm curious. I mean, 2015, 16 is when you raised it, I'm assuming? Or later?
We've been basically constantly raising money.
I know, but I'm talking about the early raise, because I'm always
on.
fascinated with the seed raise or first round or whatever. Like, what was your story at the time? Because it was a lot of regulations more than now. It was a lot more resilience than now. You know what I mean? So I'm curious, like, how did you pitch it, story-wise, and, you know, all that?
We used the Wayne Gretzky quote a lot. We said we're skating to where the puck's going to be.
Okay.
This is a massive market that is emerging out of the shadows, it being the cannabis industry. There really aren't very many good products. We have a really well-made, delicious, nice-looking drink that is just going to change the whole the edible, you know, environment.
You're reinventing the edible, literally.
Yeah, that is what we told people.
Yeah.
And investors, they were able to catch on to that really quickly, because the cannabis thing, everyone saw that coming. We knew it was going to be a big deal. And the question was who was going to do it properly, and you know, we were able to convince a few folks that it was us.
Okay.
And then since then, you know, we've attracted more significant capital. Excuse me. You know, from more professional investors, and they're looking at our track record, and they see our sales now, where we're, you know, selling through these Anheuser-Busch wholesalers, and that's what's, you know, generating the interest today.
Well, my last part of this end, what advice would you give someone who wants to create a CBD product? And it doesn't have to be CBD soda. I don't want you to give up your competitive secrets. I'm talking about more high level, like, given what you both have done as a team and your company, like, what advice would you give that person in that garage level? You know, they might not have a 4x4, you know, Forerunner. They might have a Honda Civic, and they're just pushing product, and they're trying to get their name out there. Like, what advice would you give them at this day and age? Like, if you had to do it differently, what would you do?
Well, as far as doing things differently, I mean, I could tell you like 8 hours of things I would have done differently. But advice, I think that because this is such a new industry, because it's a relatively unregulated industry, there's some not so good people out there who are not trustworthy, that they're trying to make a quick buck and capitalize on the interest. I think if you go out there, whether you're talking to a distributor or a retailer or your customer, and you explain to the best of your ability what CBD is, why your product is great, that they're going to recognize that honesty and the earnest, quality to you, and they will be drawn to your product through that. You can't fake it in this, because there are people's guard is up in CBD. They're not so sure it's legal. They're not so sure it works. You have to really be direct and honest with people, and just be yourself. Like I'm a terrible salesman naturally, but I get up in front of people and kind of like you and I are talking, I just tell them what I'm, what
you're the ultimate
about.
customer. You're just like, look, I was a customer. I wasn't looking for something I wanted. I wanted to create it. I found a unique way that's not out there. And frankly, it doesn't matter if you're charismatic or not. That's what sells. I mean,
I think so. We were up at a distributor conference. There were probably 30 distributors in the room in New York City a couple weeks ago. There were some non-CBD brands there, and then a handful of CBD brands. And I had distributors coming up to me afterwards, and they said, there were definitely some other good products aside from yours there, but, you were the only guy I didn't want to punch in the face. And
so you're likable. I like that.
Yeah, and they appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what someone in this space needs to do. They go out and just be honest and likable.
Okay.
And people will be willing to kind of take this chance with you and explore the CBD frontier or THC frontier with you.
What are some regulations that someone should be aware of right now? Again, right now, who are making CBD products, let's say. I don't want to touch THC because that's a whole other conversation. Yeah. CBD specific products, what regulations or taxations or anything like that an entrepreneur should know about?
There's no additional taxation at the moment. The biggest difficulty is the discrepancy between federal law and the FDA. That the FDA calling CBD a unapproved food ingredient is going to discourage distributors and retailers and consumers from trying the product because people trust the FDA. So that guidance needs to change, and we believe it will. Other than that, you might be dealing with some state level or municipal regulators, health departments who aren't sure what you're doing.
Okay.
And you just got to engage with them directly, and again, be honest and be proud of what you're doing.
Well, I want to thank you both for being on the show. I really appreciate your story, your journey. I really want to wish you both the best. This was a great conversation. Thank you both. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
No problem. So everyone, tune in next week. We're going to have another great show. But besides that, I hope you really take to heart what these dynamic entrepreneurs I talked about. At the end of the day, you got to be that customer. You got to believe in it. You got to see the world from a futuristic standpoint. Live in the present, grind, get those things done. But you got to see that bigger picture. And, this company is a testament that, they see a bigger picture, and now, they're living it in a certain way. I mean, they launched this in, like you said, 2015. It was a lot harder back then, or I should say different back then. And now where they are, they're in a good time. And like any business, there'll be some more obstacles, but you got to keep moving forward. So appreciate you all. If you all want to connect, you know how to find me on Instagram, Ash Kumra. If you want to send me an email, ashkumra@kuci.org. This is Entrepreneur Nation signing out. We're going to play some commercials until our next show with my man Calvin Gant and at 5. So have a great week, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Very good.